blessed I am. How blessed I am. I'm one of the youngest members of the House of Representatives. I'm one of the youngest members, and it gives me an opportunity, and I think a responsibility, to look at the type of future that we want to build for our state. And I think that that's why everyone is here tonight. I don't think you're here because you're worried about yesterday. I don't even think that you're here because you're worried about today. I really believe that the Tea Party movement is born out of a concern for tomorrow and the future that we're going to build. And I can never say thank you enough for allowing me to be part of that, to be part of looking at the kind of future that we can have. Because see, we've got a great past, and we have this great opportunity in our country to live up to the values of our past. But one of the reasons I ran for state representative is that I was worried that we were getting away from those very things that have made America great. This notion that we have this unique experiment in our country where we're going to make the government weak and the people strong. And that's worked for us for so long. We've got the most exceptional society in all of human history. And one of the concerns I have is that each day that we don't stand up for our principles, that gets eroded. And I don't want it to be eroded. I'm excited about the America we can build, that we can continue to have if we continue to do the things that have made us great in the past. And it's always good to be here with this group in particular, because I do feel like I'm among friends, people who've helped me and who continue to help me. Dee, I think, put up the very first Matt Gaetz sign in front of his business. Terry went working the doors, working the halls, putting down shoe leather in Tallahassee to help pass meaningful medical malpractice reform. I don't know that there's anybody in Florida that knows more about immigration reform than Gene. And I don't get any more emails from anybody than I get from Gay. And everyone participates in this process. Matter of fact, Tony came to our redistricting hearings that we had at Fort Walton Beach High School. And stood up and said, we need a district that's got a lot of Tea Party people in it. We need all the Tea Parties in a district. And all my colleagues turned to me from all parts of the state and said, Matt, we thought that was your district. And so thank you truly. Whether you supported me politically or not, Ed's always participating on the Facebook page. This is what lawmaking ought to be about. It ought to be an open circuit process. The days of legislators just sort of, riding off into the distance to Tallahassee, making up a bunch of laws and ideas and then coming back and having to explain them, that's an antiquated paradigm. What the Tea Party has done is we can have an open circuit review of what it is that we do. A lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight, the things that we accomplished and the things that we didn't accomplish in the legislative session, it won't be new to many of you who were here for my pre-session briefing. Because we went through all of these issues, the arguments on both sides, and you gave me the arguments in this room, behind this podium. I got the arguments that I use on the floor of the House of Representatives to get many of these things accomplished. And so I have really one seminal message for tonight, and that is that the Tea Party matters. And I can prove to you, based on the legislation that was considered and the legislation that was passed, that you matter in the process, that we matter in the process, and that things are happening in Florida that never would happen absent the Tea Party movement. And absent the fact that this is a 365-day-a-year movement. We don't just spring up around election times, we're actively engaged. And I think that's what's unique, and I think that has borne some very positive results. I'll lay out another premise. This may surprise some of you that I feel this way. We had a good legislative session. We had a good legislative session, and we got things done that we never could have gotten done without you. Now, were there things that we didn't get done? Yeah. Is there more I wish we could have done? Am I anxious to do more to advance the conservative agenda? Of course. But let me say this. If I ever come back to you after being in Tallahassee and say that I had a perfect session, that I got everything done that I wanted, send me home. That's the time when it should be over for me. And for anyone. If anyone ever accomplishes everything that they've ever wanted, then they should get out of public life and return home. Now, I didn't get everything done that I wanted, and we're going to go back for more. Now, likewise, if I ever come to you and say I didn't get anything I wanted, you send me home for that, too. Yeah. I'm sure that I wouldn't be all that effective. But here, it was a good session because we did things that I think will advance the conservative agenda. Let me start with education reform. And we talked about this in this room. One of the big, tough political fights is how we would address teacher quality in our state. Now, we've talked about class size. the investment that this state has made in bricks and mortar. And you know, we know every study with any credibility proves that the #1 factor for student performance is the quality of the teaching. #1 factor. Now, that's pretty common sense. We all know that. It wasn't all that long ago that I was in high school and having some of those teachers, so I get it. And we had to do more to attract more quality people to the teaching profession, and we needed to live up and sober up to a reality. You know, I'm a lawyer. We have very effective lawyers, and we have ineffective lawyers. We have effective doctors, and we have ineffective doctors. And it shouldn't be politically incorrect to say we have some really effective teachers, and then we have some really ineffective teachers that shouldn't be in the classroom anymore. And for so long it's been taboo to say that, and I don't know why. I said it on the floor of the House because you told me it was okay to say it. And here's what we did. One, we got rid of teacher tenure functionally. If someone chronically underperforms, we now have cause to remove them from the classroom. And that's a good thing. You know, it is morally wrong to subject a child to an educator for a year if that educator can't effectively provide an educational product. Because if we say that the teacher is more important, that their interest in their public sector job is more important, then we have devalued the experience for a student. And who are we as a society if we can't stand up for the rights of those students to get a good quality education? So we eliminated, with the Teacher Quality and Student Success Act, teacher tenure in our state. Now, there can't just be a stick, there's got to be a carrot too. So we instituted in the state of Florida a real performance pay system. And each school district is going to have a card and going to have a seat at the table to determine which teachers are highly effective, which teachers need improvement. But where we can designate teachers who go into tough schools, who raise scores, who work with students before school, after school, where we can designate those teachers through peer review, through principal review, through grades, through how these students are able to perform on the ACT and the SAT. If we can designate them, they ought to make more money than the teachers who don't perform. You know, I know that's this crazy idea, kind of using a private sector approach in the public sector, but if someone performs better, we ought to create more of an incentive. Because right now, if you want to attract somebody to the teaching profession, they essentially have to accept a life of poverty for the first several years. And we should be able to say to a bright young person graduating from college, if you are willing to go to a tough school and you work hard and the students do better, we're going to pay you like the professional you are. And those teachers, we're not there yet, but those teachers that are willing to do that and that can get results, we ought to pay them like engineers and chemists and lawyers and doctors. And we don't do that yet, but it's my hope we'll move forward in that respect. So you helped me with that very argument, and we got it passed. Now, in the area of education reform, there was also a lot of discussion about the educational materials. A lot of us are concerned that some of the educational materials don't really focus enough on some of the elements of American history that are very important, how our nation came to be, and frankly, some of the educational materials we have in our state are downright un-American and unpatriotic. And if you read some of these books, you'd think that we're raising a generation of students that should be apologetic about being American. You know, I never want to apologize for being American. I think it's something that we ought to be proud of. We ought to have a great nationalist revival about the things that have made our country great. So here's what's happened from a textbook and educational review standpoint. Too many of the decisions were being made in Tallahassee by the Department of Education. And so that was changed. But more and more local school districts in the 67 counties in our state have got to step up and take citizen review. Now in Santa Rosa County and Okaloosa County, my hope is that we can do a lot more to get active citizens to be a part of reviewing textbooks, and that we work at the local level with our school board members to make sure we have a role in that process. I bet tonight, if I sent around a sign-up sheet, I could get a group right here in this room that would be willing to read a textbook, maybe 2 textbooks a year, to review what's in them. And so let's not leave that as empty rhetoric. Let's seize that opportunity, and I hope you'll work with me and with our local school board to have local review of textbooks. And I think then we can improve that process. Another area that we addressed was labor reform, public labor reform. And admittedly, this was a mixed bag. Let's start with the public employee contributions. Now, Governor Scott came out, and no surprise, he laid out his budget at a tea party in Eustis, Florida. A tea party, by the way, I've had the chance to go and address and mention that I was a member of the Panhandle Patriots. And at that tea party, the governor said that Florida should not be the only state in America that doesn't require some contribution from our public employees toward their pension plans. You know, at our small business, at my law firm, we have a 401k. If I contribute, then my employer matches it. But I functionally have to pay 50% of what goes into that pot. But Florida was the only state. Either we were way ahead of everyone else or way behind, and I think we were way behind. So the governor said, we're going to require some contribution from our public employees. Make no mistake on this point, the Tea Party matters. If it wasn't for Tea Party groups, for 9/12 groups, for conservatives backing the governor up, that would have absolutely failed in the legislature. Too many special interests are behind the notion that the public sector should continue to grow even when the private sector struggles. And I don't believe that. And so your support of the government and your support of conservative legislators made that a reality, where now there'll have to be a 3% contribution. I would have supported a higher contribution than 3%. I would have supported more. But, you know, there was a couple of teachers from the Okaloosa County Education Association. They came and met with me. Sat down on the couch in my office, and they said, you know, they were very polite, very kind. They said, Representative Gates, we think that this 3% contribution is awful. I said, I agree. I think it should be 5. So it's a very short meeting. Unfortunately, as Al mentioned, in Okaloosa County, we're not going to see the benefit of that, because our county commission decided to raise the salaries of our public employees so that they won't have to make that contribution to their benefits. Though the state had a mandatory 3% contribution, that has been offset by your county commission, and you will be paying that contribution for county employees in Okaloosa County.
Not true, Matt.
Which is unfortunate. It is. Well, it's either that or the paper doesn't tell the truth. So maybe that's true.
Could be the paper.
Yeah. Well, maybe Dave can explain at the end. But yeah. Well, that would be helpful, because from what I read, it was any increase, to me, any increase in public sector salaries right now, when the private sector is struggling, shows a fundamental disconnect between government and the people government also.